Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining me tonight. We'll go ahead and get started. I'm Dr. James Adams, and I'm glad to have you all here tonight. Just a little background. I have a daughter with autism, which is what caused me 25 years ago to focus my research on looking at the causes of autism, how to treat it, how to diagnose it, how to prevent it. And we'll talk about a lot of that tonight. But tonight we're going to especially focus on the nutritional side of autism and specifically our guidelines from the Autism Nutrition Research Center that I founded, looking at comprehensive nutritional support for autism. Um, and so just a little bit of background. I am the director of ASU's Autism Research Program. I'm also the president of the Autism Nutrition Research Center that I founded, and also president of Gut-Brain Axis Therapeutics, and also Autism Diagnostics Lab. Just a couple disclosures I have to make as we go through things. Um, Although I am the president of ANRC, it's a nonprofit that I founded 14 years ago. So I serve as a volunteer. I don't receive any salaries or royalties from it. We just take the research that we did at ASU and make it available to families. I also licensed the formulation for a prenatal supplement to help women have healthier babies, and that's another project. I lead the Gut-Brain Axis Therapeutics program, developing microbiota transplant therapy for autism. I'll talk very briefly about that at the end. I've received research funding from the federal government, many foundations, and over 1,000 autism families. So many groups we want to thank for their support. So what we're going to cover tonight is, first of all, vitamin, mineral, and micronutrient supplements for autism, why it is that roughly 3/4 of children and adults can benefit from this. Then we're going to go beyond there and talk about other essential nutrients that are important. So we'll then talk about comprehensive nutritional support. And then briefly, we'll talk about our phone app, our iPhone app, which can help you pick the best treatments for your child's symptoms. Then we'll talk about our expanded guidelines, how to go beyond the basic guidelines we've had for many years, and also briefly mention our consulting program if you need individual consulting at very reasonable rates. And then finally, we'll talk about very briefly, our gut testing and our microbiota transplant work. So just to begin with, um, we've known for over 40 years that children and adults with autism can benefit from high-dose vitamin mineral supplements. My hero, Bernie Rimland, who back in the 60s wrote the book that dispelled the theory that autism was due to mothers hating and abusing their children. He's the one who said autism is a biological disorder. He went on to begin some preliminary research studies in vitamin B6 at very high doses, and then there were many more studies. So he inspired me to begin this study, which we published in 2004, 22 years ago. This was a randomized, double-blind, placebo-controlled trial, 20 children, ages 3 to 8 years. We treated them for 3 months with the first version of our vitamin mineral supplement. And we found that the treatment group improved significantly more than placebo on both gut symptoms and on sleep. So that, if we look specifically at the symptoms that improved, we saw that there was primarily improvement in sleep and in GI. So a 4 means no change. We see that in the supplement group, there was more improvement in sleep and GI, somewhat more improvement in general behavior, also more improvement in eye contact and receptive language, although it wasn't quite statistically significant. This is a small study. But overall, generally very helpful. That led us to do a second, much larger study. This is one of the largest autism treatment studies to date. 141 children and adults with autism, randomized, double-blind, placebo-controlled, and we measured the nutritional status in 55 children with autism, pre and post-treatment, and we compared them against 44 typical children. So briefly, what we found is that children with autism had many nutritional abnormalities. They had low levels of many vitamins, especially biotin, but also B5, vitamin E, and carotenoids, and very abnormal vitamin B6. They had low levels of ATP, which is the major energy source in the body, and also two important related cofactors for over 200 different enzymatic reactions, NADH and NADPH. They had low glutathione, high oxidative stress, impaired methylation, which is important to basically turn on or off different genes. We found they had very low sulfate. That's the biggest nutritional deficiency in autism that had been previously shown, and we confirmed that. We found they had low levels of many neurotransmitters, norepinephrine, epinephrine, serotonin, acetylcholine, and abnormal dopamine. Some were high, some were low. We found they had low amino acids, the key ones, tryptophan, phenylalanine, tyrosine. We now know part of the reason those were low is because those are the feedstocks that our gut bacteria and yeast are eating up. We found that there was a subset with low iodine, so they needed to test their thyroid function and get extra iodine. We found they had low lithium, and the mothers did as well in a previous study. So we found that that was an issue. We find high levels of toxic metals. The amazing thing about our vitamin study is not only did we identify all of these problems, we found that a simple high-dose vitamin mineral supplement could normalize or improve almost every one of these markers that I'm telling you about. It was astonishing how much improvement could be had from vitamins and minerals if given at high dose. Many kids and adults with autism are on poor diets where they're just eating a very narrow range of foods, but also, so that's part of the reason they need these, but also many of them have abnormal enzymes, so you need higher levels of these vitamins and minerals to activate those impaired enzymes. So we found many significant improvements in sulfate, in methylation, in oxidative stress, in glutathione, in mitochondrial function, in NADH, NADPH, which, as I mentioned, affect over 200 reactions in the body. Biochemistry-wise, this was a home run. We saw so many improvements in the biochemistry. And so, again, if we look at ATP, so blue is the control group, red is the autism group. We found they were low and it went up. They were low in NADH and NADPH and it went up. They were slightly low in CoQ10. It went way up. NADPH and NADP are important because they recycle reduced oxidized glutathione to reduce glutathione. So it doesn't matter only how much glutathione you have, but is it being recycled? And so these two cofactors are important for recycling it. We found there are many improvements in sulfate. So you can see this is very low in the kids with autism, improved quite a bit after treatment for both free sulfate and total sulfate. This is the first study for autism to show that sulfate levels could be increased. And sulfate, we now know, is very important to detoxify a lot of substances in the gut. And that's why we believe that's much of the reason why children with autism are low in sulfate. They're using up so much of it to detoxify toxins from their gut. But improvements in methylation, uridine is a key marker for a need for more methylation, and for glutathione, and for plasma nitrotyrosine, which is a marker of oxidative stress. Sulfate deficiency is a major problem in autism. As I mentioned, this study was consistent with several other studies. Sulfate is very important for detoxifying many substances, including some neurotransmitters, but also especially toxins from gut bacteria. And it's needed to lubricate the GI tract. Low sulfate tends to lead to constipation. And so now we think it's the reason these gut bacteria, excess gut bacteria producing toxins, one of the major reasons for these sulfation problems. The other good way to treat it is with magnesium sulfate baths, and we'll come to that. In terms of symptom improvement, 0 is no change. This is a scale from +3 to -3. The blue is the placebo group, and you'll see, gee, that placebo group improved some. Those sugar pills helped some. But the red bars are the treatment group, and they improved more. On every symptom that we looked at, every one of these dozen symptoms, the treatment group improved more than placebo, and it was especially significant on the average of all symptoms, on receptive language, on hyperactivity, on tantruming, and on overall. So it was a moderate effect size, which frankly is better than most drugs have. So that was very exciting to see, but because the improvements in the human metabolism were so great, we would have expected even more improvement. But now we know that the other half of what we have to treat is not just improve the body health, but get rid of the gut toxins. But just to summarize, this very important study revealed many problems, many nutritional and metabolic problems in autism. But the exciting thing is just giving our high-dose vitamin, mineral, micronutrient supplement improved or normalized most of those. Moderate improvements in many autism symptoms. And the analysis we did in this study 15 years ago led us to then make changes in the supplement to improve it and increase levels of certain nutrients where more was needed. So we then went on to do another study where we looked at not just vitamins and minerals, but other essential nutrients. So this is a comprehensive study in which we combined a number of dietary and nutritional interventions where each one helps a little bit. So we hope that all together they can help a lot. And so we added in a vitamin mineral supplement. We added in fish oil in the form to give omega-3 fatty acids. Over a dozen studies showing kids with autism are low in that. Epsom salt baths to give extra sulfate, extra magnesium. Carnitine, we've done the first study to show that carnitine helped about half of children with autism to support, it basically helps get fats into the mitochondria to provide energy for the body. Digestive enzymes, we know from several studies, kids with autism are low in certain enzymes, and giving a healthy, gluten-free, casein-free, soy-free diet. By healthy, I don't mean we go from eating Oreos to eating gluten-free Oreos, but I mean we go from eating Oreos to eating broccoli and spinach and chicken and healthy things. So treatment schedule, we added in these treatments gradually over the course of 12 months. This is an unusually long study. We started with a vitamin mineral supplement, then the fish oil, then the Epsom salt baths twice a week, then the carnitine, then the digestive enzymes, then the healthy diet. That allowed us to determine, by seeing the order in which symptoms improved, which treatments were the most effective. And so looking at the treatments that improved, again, this is a randomized single-blind study. Our evaluators did not know who was in the treatment group and who was in the placebo group. So we had expert blinded evaluators do the autism testing and the IQ testing at the beginning and end. We had a blinded evaluator evaluate the functional ability using the Vineland. And the parents did do a number of evaluations as well. They were not blinded. They knew if their children were on the treatment or not. So we had 37 children start the study and 28 children and adults. And we had 28 finished, which is very good for a 12-month study. 3 dropped due to lack of interest. 4 we removed because the parents weren't very consistent in giving the supplements. 2 had possible effects of the vitamin mineral supplement. It was too strong, perhaps, for 2 of the children. But then when they went on the special diet, they improved a lot. And in the treatment group, delay group, we had them wait 1 year, very patient, before they then started our treatment. We had 30 start. We asked them not to make any changes. We had to disqualify 3 people. 1 woman went from eating McDonald's and a very large soda drink every day to eating salads. So she improved her diet. She was doing better. We had to disqualify her. And we had 2 kids who had a major change in their school. But we had a lot of controls to compare against. We had very few adverse effects. Just a couple children couldn't tolerate the vitamin supplement. 1 couldn't tolerate carnitine. 2 could not tolerate the digestive enzyme, even though it was helping one of them. And curiously enough, the diet, a healthy gluten-free, dairy-free diet, was a problem with compliance. It made some of the children irritable because they weren't getting the foods they wanted. So that was a challenge. The essential fatty acids and the Epsom salts, no problems at all with those. So again, very rare that any one of these nutritional interventions would be a problem. In our clinician assessments, I'll just go through this very briefly. What was so exciting to see was we saw essentially a 7-point gain in IQ, in nonverbal IQ, and no change in the placebo group. That's really striking to be able to see that much improvement in IQ. But also in terms of their adaptive skills, what they were able to do. On average, over 12 months, the treatment group gained 18 months of development versus the delay group was making progress, but slowly. They gained only 4 months. So especially there were good improvements in receptive language, in expressive language, in writing, personal living skills, domestic living skills, interactions in the community, much higher in interpersonal relationships. Interesting, play and leisure time was about the same between the two groups, but much better coping skills, overall averaging over everything, 18 months gain in development versus 4 months for placebo, or not placebo, but delay group. On the CARS, the core autism scale, 22% reduction versus 14% for delay group. But we also saw improvements in overall severity. For the parent evaluations, in terms of the SRS, which is a scale of of social responsiveness, again, more improvement in treatment than delay group. Aberrant behaviors, more improvement in irritability, in lethargy, in stereotypies or repetitive actions, hyperactivity. So lots of improvements there. Improvements in the short sensory profile. Going up is actually a good thing on this scale. So there's more improvement, less sensory problems in the treatment group. Again, not a cure, but a substantial improvement, and the other group didn't change. Looking at 20 different symptoms, I won't go through all of these, but across the board, parents reported many good improvements over that year in just about every symptom, and little change in improvement in the group that was not treated, that waited patiently for 1 year to make any changes. So overall, 14% of the treatment group said their child was doing much better, 43% better, 39% slightly better, 4% no change. No one got worse from improving their nutrition. The delay group was a slight improvements, but much less. What's really interesting is looking at the time. When was it that treatments improved? Most of the improvements began in the first 3 months from the vitamin mineral supplement and the fish oil that we were giving. So those appear to be the two major treatments. There was a little increase at the end as well when we had added on the healthy allergen-free diet. So we also saw some improvements in gut symptoms, 30% improvement versus 10% for the delay group. So on every measure we looked at, this is our summary, every measure we looked at, more improvement in the treatment group than the delay group. What treatments did the parents rate the highest? They gave the highest ratings to the vitamin mineral supplement from ANRC and the fish oil, which we used. We used high dose and we saw good improvements there. Some benefit from Epsom salt baths, some benefited from carnitine, some benefited from digestive enzymes, more benefit from the diet, but some kids didn't comply with the diet. So I think the true benefit is more if they actually had complied better with it. And who wanted to continue? Almost everyone wanted to continue the vitamin mineral supplement and the fish oil. And the Epsom salts is just so easy. Many people wanted to continue. And some people wanted to continue the carnitine, the digestive enzyme, and the healthy allergen-free diet. So just to summarize, The treatments were well tolerated in most cases. Just one or two kids typically could not tolerate a treatment. And we saw, especially, no question, 7-point gain on the IQ test versus a 1-point loss in the delay group, and 18 months improvement in developmental skills versus 4 months in the delay group, and lots of smaller improvements in other areas. We did have 3 special cases of improvement. A child who was unable to urinate, had to be catheterized every day. Once we put them on a dairy-free diet, they were cured of that. One little girl had very low energy. She couldn't stand up if she was sitting on the ground. She could walk only short distances. Once she had carnitine, she began skipping around the house. She walked long distances, learned to ride a bike. We had one child with pica, which is normally associated with very severe nutritional deficiencies. And after they were treated, after they went on the gluten-free, the healthy diet, within 1 week, they were cured of their pica. They had some of the worst nutritional deficiencies prior to that. So our recommendations are very simply, we think everyone should try the vitamin mineral supplement. We think everyone should try the fish oil if they're not eating wild fish twice a week. Wild fish we think is better, but if your child won't eat wild fish, especially fatty fish low in the food chain like salmon, then going ahead and eating fish oil we think is great, and the healthy diet. The L-carnitine is useful if the child's not consuming beef or pork. Beef is the main dietary source of carnitine. People should be able to make it, but some kids with autism can't make enough. And so if they're not eating beef 2 to 3 times a week, or pork has a little bit of carnitine in it, that's pretty much it. Epsom salt baths, we just think everyone should try. It's just so simple to add Epsom salts to your bath. And digestive enzymes, especially if you're having loose stools or gaseousness. So these guidelines are available on our website. And by the way, I forgot to say a copy of this presentation of both the PowerPoint will be put on the ANRC website. We'll email you with the specific link for that. And also we're recording this presentation and we'll make the recording available to everyone as well. Okay, so then after that comprehensive treatment study, we did another study. We asked people who had been using ANRC for a long time, 3 months up to 5 or more years. We asked them in a large survey, what benefits did they see? And so we surveyed people, 160 families who had been using it. And we found from this survey, people on average had been using it for a year, some people up to 5 years or more. We had 160 participants. Some were young children, some were older children, some were adults. And what we found from our comprehensive supplement is that 2/3 of them took the full dose, 1/3 of them did not use the full dose, sometimes for cost, sometimes because it is a fair number of pills. About 14% reported some temporary adverse effects, mostly hyperactivity, but usually that was resolved just by lowering the dose. If they had followed our recommendations and started at a lower dose, then that really reduced the risk. It was the people who went to the full dose immediately, not following our directions, who didn't realize how strong the supplement was. That was when they usually had some AEs. So we recommend starting at a low dose, gradually increasing over a month. Then you avoid most of those. We found 74% of families reported moderate, good, or great benefit. 19% reported only slight benefit, and 8% reported no benefit. This was higher rating. We also had done a national survey of 1,200 families rating many other nutrients. So let me just show a comparison. ANRC rating of 2.3. Average of a general multivitamin, just 1.4. A high-dose multivitamin, 1.9. High-dose multivitamin for autism, 1.8. Average of 58 nutraceuticals, 1.6. Average of 28 psychiatric medication and seizure medications. That's the lowest rating, 1.4, and has the highest adverse effect rating, 0.9. So least benefit, most adverse effect. The ANRC supplement is much safer than psych meds, and yet it is giving your body the nutrients to boost your serotonin, boost your or normalize your dopamine and many other neurotransmitters. So that's why we recommend starting at first, seeing if it helps. 3 months is long enough to know. If it's not helping, feel free to, we encourage you to try something else, but most people report good benefit after 3 months. Who is most likely to benefit? Didn't matter if it's a young child or an adult, equally likely. Males and females, equally likely. People with mild autism, people with severe autism, equally likely to benefit. And even those with early onset versus regressive. We haven't yet found a marker of who's most likely to benefit, except people who have low nutritional status. And it's just frankly cheaper to just try the supplement than to spend hundreds of dollars on the test, which may or may not be a very good indicator. If we compare the results of that study with the study we had done 10 years previously, we found very similar reports as to which symptoms improved the most. The symptoms that improved the most, there were significantly higher improvements in cognition and thinking, in receptive language, play and leisure skills, eye contact, tantrums and meltdowns, sleep, hyperactivity, and overall symptoms, according to 161 parents and a few adults on the spectrum. So if we again look at the symptoms that improved the most, this is just showing that scale. Blue is the the new supplement. Orange is the older version, which was almost as good. And then the gray bar is placebo. So you can see for all of these treatment groups, the treatment group is substantially better than placebo, and the new version slightly better than the previous study. So to summarize all of these studies that we've done, these are 4 studies we've done. We actually have a 5th one we haven't published yet, but we also saw very good improvements. First study showed improvement in sleep and GI. Second study showed significant improvement in the average of 11 symptoms and specific improvements in 3 symptoms. Our comprehensive nutritional study showed that fish oil was also very important to give in substantial dosages and also as important as a vitamin mineral supplement. It's an essential nutrient. Your body needs it, and most people just aren't getting enough. And then finally, our last study showing that people who have been on it up to 5 years, if anything, slightly more likely to improve. So we recommend all children and all adults try a high-strength vitamin mineral micronutrient supplement. I'm biased. I think ours is the best because we've done the most research on it. We've measured levels pre and post treatment, but there are other supplements out there too you can consider. We do recommend combining it with the rest of the ANRC guidelines, and it's available from our nonprofit. But also I'll point out several parents, especially mothers, who told me that their child, they've tried taking the supplement, that especially with symptoms of ADD, ADHD, moms tell us it just helps them focus better. But also there's an important study of parents of children with autism showing that they have increased oxidative stress, impaired methylation, low glutathione. I hate to tell you, but that leads to increased homocysteine, which you should be measuring at your annual health checkup. But that is a prime risk factor for heart disease and Alzheimer's. So check your homocysteine level. If it's low, then we recommend folinic acid and methyl B12. And again, folinic acid is the active ingredient in leucovorin, which you've probably heard a lot about. Leucovorin is just high-dose folinic acid. So parents may need supplementation too. So please get your homocysteine level checked so you can stay healthy, so you can help your kids. Here's a picture of our bottle for the capsules, but we also have a powder version. We have it both as an unflavored powder, but it has a very strong vitamin mineral taste, so you need to mix it with juice or something in most cases. But also we have a new flavored powder, an orange mango flavor. Tastes like Tang, many people have said. So those are options for you. we recommend the capsules if the child swallows capsules. It is quite a few capsules. There are 40 nutrients in ANRC. So depending on the child's body weight, different dosages are needed. But now let's turn to our Autism Treatment Radar app. We surveyed 1,200 autism families, bless their hearts for filling out a very long survey in which they rated many different medications, supplements, diets, and therapies that they had used. What's unique is they rated them all on the same scale, so you can compare one versus another. So this app is available for free from the App Store for Apple. And so you can search over 30 symptoms to find what are the top-rated treatment for those symptoms. We published 3 studies. We did a study just on the psych meds. We did a study just on the nutritional supplements, and we did a study just on the diets to figure out which one of a dozen diets was best for which types of symptoms. But you can go to the app and then pick a symptom, and I'll just give you some examples of that coming up. But let's now talk about our new expanded guidelines, which we're going to be adding to the website for the first time for people to see. But this is basically the guidelines we give to our ANRC consultant to work with families, but we want to share them with you. First thing is we recommend basic medical testing. So many children in our studies, we found they have some problems that we can identify and should be treated right away. So checking kidney and liver function, electrolytes, glucose, and other key metabolites, and complete blood cell count. These are cheap, $10 tests. They should be done on every child, and it's sad when they haven't done it. Do you have enough red and white blood cells or an excess of? Vitamin D test. At least a quarter of the country, if not more, have low vitamin D. If you are very dark-skinned, roughly 85% of people who are very dark-skinned in the US have very low vitamin D, and it's so important to take. Low iron, these deficiencies are common in children, in females who have begun menstruation, and also people with certain symptoms. So iron glycinate is the supplementation we generally suggest based on testing. Again, realize 10% of women have iron deficiency leading to anemia, but not recommended for men unless you test, because 5% of men get too much iron, and they actually should be giving blood or changing their diet to get rid of that excess iron. Low thyroid, very important to test in young children. The average person in the United States has a mild iodine deficiency, according to the World Health Organization. There's just not very much iodine in our soil compared to the rest of the world. So the average person in the US has a mild iodine deficiency, unless they're taking iodinized salt. We solved this problem 100 years ago by adding iodine to salt. But nowadays, people use less salt, or if they're eating, say, potato chips, those don't have iodinized salt. So iodinized salt, if you're not taking it and adding it to your food, there's a very good chance you have a thyroid, a mild iodine deficiency. And that's very important for brain function. And then food allergy testing. Food allergies are common. It's important to test for those. And clinical observation is one of the best ways. If you find out that food is a problem, then remove the food from your diet, see if it helps. If it does, add it back in. And if it worsens the symptoms, that's really the gold standard. There is blood and skin testing available. That can be a guide, but it's not necessarily as accurate. One of the things we've learned from talking with many families is we would tell them, go check your child's poop every day for a week. And so many families would come back and say, I had no idea how bad my child's poop was until I looked. Because once they're out of diapers, people don't go and look in toilets. And you'd ask, Junior, so John, over breakfast, you say, how was your poop today? Was it liquid? Was it hard? It's not something people ask for. But realize that about 30% of a person's stool is gut bacteria. So we have this beautiful little chart here Type 4 is what we're aiming for, a nice sausage coming out of you. But some people have very hard stools that are difficult to pass. They may need more liquid or other issues. And some people have liquid stools, and some people alternate between the two. But if the stool is unusually foul smell or a strange color, again, a third of that stool is gut bacteria. That's a big clue you have a gut bacterial problem. So do the toilet test. It's cheap, and you'd be surprised. We're amazed how many families don't realize how bad their child's gut health is until they look in the toilet. I strongly suggest every child with autism be tested for intestinal yeast. There are 5 studies, including 2 by our group, showing that roughly 40 to 60% of children with autism have elevated levels of yeast. Yeast produce toxins like alcohol, but some of them are 100 times more toxic than alcohol. So think about the effect of alcohol, making it hard to regulate your emotions, can make some people aggressive, can make some other people silly with giddy laughter. So this is a major clue. It's a hidden infection in autism. 2 studies by our group have shown that high levels of yeast is associated with worse autism symptoms, but not worse gut symptoms. The only clue is worse autism symptoms. That's not much of a clue that you have a yeast infection. So you really need a medical test, and we'll talk about that. Our 2011 study found that the reason that these gut infections can last a long time, because once they're established in the gut, the yeast produce a protease, an enzyme that destroys the body's defense against yeast and bacteria. It destroys what's called secretory IgA. That's the major immunoglobulins in your gut to defend you against bacteria and yeast. And we found kids with autism with yeast infections had very low levels. So very important to understand that these yeast infections can be very resistant to treatment. Antifungals need to be combined with a low sugar, low carb diet for long-term benefit. Also, we now think you need to do beneficial yeast like Saccharomyces boulardii, Saccharomyces cerevisiae. They tend to anti-correlate with the harmful yeasts. So the main treatments, according to survey data from our app, nystatin and diflucan helped 64% of children. These are antifungals. Good benefit scores, very rare that they cause adverse effects. And this is ratings from 167 and 131 families. Also, if you look at our ANRC extended guidelines, we mostly focus on nutritional supplements, on special diets, and on therapies, because parents scored these generally as more safer and more effective than most psychiatric medications. This is where we recommend you start first. So this is just one example. If you go to our ANRC, if you download our app and you look up a symptom of aggression, and you want to know what are the best rated treatments for aggression according to families, 45% of them say cannabis helped, a good overall rating, some adverse effect, 0.5, but on a scale of 0 to 3, not too high. Feingold diet, avoiding artificial colors, flavors, preservatives, etc., also well rated for aggression. ABA can help people better express themselves and help reduce their aggression. Massage therapy, who wouldn't like a massage to help calm you? And exercise. One of the top-rated treatments in our survey is exercise, but also one of the less common ones that people do. But again, this aggression we think may be due to frustration or due to gut pain or other health problems. So check for those too. And I'll just mention one other example for constipation. What are the top-rated treatments for constipation? Well, lactulose, it's an artificial sugar that seems to help, but has some people reporting adverse effects. Aloe juice seems to be helpful. Digestive enzymes, also helpful. Flax seeds, which is a great source of fiber. You have to grind up the flax seeds, just remember that. And then probiotics can help some people as well. So digestive enzymes, especially those that have lactase, if you're lactose intolerant, if you can't handle milk, and other disaccharidases helping with carbs and sugar. In general, my favorite probiotics are those that have a variety of bifidobacteria, but different people with autism have so much variation in their gut. It's just trial and error in most cases until the treatment we're very focused on is microbiota transplant therapy, where you just give all the good bacteria from a very healthy person. So I won't go through all 30 symptoms. If there's interest, we can have another talk where we go through what are the top treatments for each one of 30 symptoms. But the summary of these guidelines is basic medical testing. It just shocks me. It hasn't been done in so many children. So testing, these basic tests your doctor would be very comfortable doing. It's the first thing they'll do if you're taken to an emergency room. Searching our ANRC treatment radar app for the top rated treatments for your child's specific symptoms. Then you can go and read up more about each treatment and see how it's rated. What are the specific things that it helps with, the specific potential adverse effects to watch out for. And we generally recommend just trying one treatment at a time so you know if it's helpful or not. With I'll briefly mention a few other things. We have developed a test of gut health based on a simple urine collection. Our gut health test is a comprehensive assessment of microbial metabolites that we found elevated in about 90% of children. The test also looks for gluten and casein peptides in urine, so it lets you know if your body isn't digesting those. So we've had some people say, gee, I thought I was in a pretty good exclusion diet, but they weren't. And when they went on a rigorous diet, then it helped. And then also we now have an autism screening test. When the levels are very high, that's a screening test, about 95% accurate from just a urine sample. We can say, is this a child with autism or a child who's developing typically? So the test is available in the UK. Any family can go and order the test and just have the urine kit shipped to them. They ship all around the world. It's very simple through FedEx. Then just pee in a cup and ship it back to England for evaluation. We also have our new consulting program, our wonderful ANRC consultant. Julie, let's see if I can put you on for just a moment. Our ANRC consultant is here. Give me just a moment to get to her. There we are. Juliana, would you like to say just a few words about our wonderful consulting program?
Hi everyone, I'm Juliana. I'm the consultant at ANRC. And the ANRC consulting program is a great program where you can meet with me one-on-one. We can meet virtually over Zoom or phone, and then we can discuss the ANRC guidelines and the expanded guidelines and how you can apply them to your child and your situation.
Thanks, Julie. So again, you can sign up for more info or for a consult by going to the website page. Many families have especially used it to get insight after you get the test from Analudos. What do you do with it? And so that's been especially popular. But again, Julie is, I think, very skilled. We've had a lot of discussions, and she's helped me put together our ANRC expanded guidelines. Briefly, I'll mention also our work on microbiota transplant therapy. We now know that 85 to 90% of kids with autism have a very dysfunctional gut microbiome. They have high levels of many harmful substances, low levels of many beneficial bacteria. We know that these metabolites that the gut bacteria make primarily affect two key neurotransmitters, serotonin and dopamine. 90% of your serotonin is made in your gut. Half of your dopamine is made in the gut. They need normal serotonin and dopamine to help your gut, your second brain, to keep things moving properly through your gut, to get the right enzymes excreted at the right time, to keep the pH in the stomach at the right pH. And unfortunately, These gut bacteria produce corrupted versions of dopamine and serotonin that not only disrupt gut function, but they also have a big effect on mood and cognition, and affecting brain function. So if you want to learn more about this, I encourage you to go to our website. This is the long version of the website, gutbrainaccesstherapeutics.com. The short version, gbat.com. If you are interested in investing, we've had now over 140 autism families choose to invest in our company. It's a very unusual company funded by autism families to help autism families. Our company is conducting clinical trials. We think we have just one major phase 3 study left to do. If you'd like to learn more about considering investing in it, feel free to come to one of our investment meetings on April 1st or April 7th. We'll send out emails about that. But the constraint, the federal government will only allow certain people to invest, only people who have high incomes of 200,000 to 300,000 a year with spouse, or if they have assets of $1 million or more, not counting your home. So you have to be relatively well off financially for the federal government to allow you to invest in small private companies like ours that are not yet on a major stock exchange. But again, we welcome you to come and learn more. We think it's an exciting opportunity. So just to summarize this talk, and then we'll open it up for questions, and we'll turn on chat so you can start asking questions. The ANRC Essentials Plus, we've shown through 5 studies now, is a powerful vitamin mineral micronutrient that addresses many of the problems in kids with autism: oxidative stress, methylation, mitochondrial function, and more. It's safe. It's rare that a child has a problem, and if they do, they can just stop taking it. It's effective. It seems to help 3/4 of children and adults with autism. It's available from our nonprofit. The ANRC guidelines go beyond there. We find that fish oil is also equally important. A dozen studies showing kids with autism are low in omega-3s. 4 studies were giving a little bit of fish oil, it helps a little bit. In our study, we gave a lot, and it helped a lot. Carnitine for kids with low energy who are not eating beef. And the healthy diet, everyone should be eating a healthy diet. And again, allergen-free. Our ANRC Treatment Radar, available for free from our App Store, can help you find out what 1,200 other families had to say about treatments. Our expanded guidelines, we touched on it briefly. Here, I just gave you 2 examples. Again, you can go to the app and read about them. But if people would like to have a second talk just on the expanded guidelines in more detail, let me know and we can do that. Our wonderful ANRC consultants, many families have told me how happy they are to talk with Julie, and it's just so simple, a phone call or a video, and the rates we think are very reasonable because she works for a nonprofit. Our antiludos testing, you can order today. It's very simple to order. And our microbiota transplant, again, we hope to raise the money to do a major phase 3 study for a couple hundred more people, but it's not yet approved by the FDA. So thank you all for listening. Again, a recording of this meeting will be sent out to all registrants, but now I'm going to turn it over to, let me just turn on the chat so people can type in questions in chat, and that way we can answer them. Give me just a moment to turn on the chat settings. Let's see. Okay, you should now be able to go ahead and enter questions in chat, and then I'll start looking at those and as they come in, and I'm happy to answer any questions. If you have personal questions I can't answer, you can email them to me. I'm glad to try to answer questions as best I can. But again, hopefully I'll answer a lot of questions tonight that people might have. Again, with the ANRC Essentials Plus, I'll just recommend that we think it's very important to start at a low dose and gradually increase because it is a very potent supplement. But let me go ahead and start taking questions. So, do we have this training available for Spanish-speaking families? It's a great question. We don't currently have that option, but I'll think about that. We might try to do a recording in Spanish. We do have a handout for Spanish speakers that has a subset. Next question, is there a specific fish oil and dosage you recommend? The dosage is based on weight, on body weight. We give the dosages in our ANRC guidelines, so I won't try to repeat them here. In terms of the fish oil, there are many high-quality fish oils and there are many low-quality fish oils out there. One of the best ways to know is to smell it. If it smells bad, it is bad. So we recommend keeping the fish oil in a refrigerator. We use in our product, in our studies, we've used a product from Nordic Naturals who goes to great length to keep it purified. Another good product seems to be Tyler Eskimo. We do offer a discounted version on Nordic Naturals from our ANRC website because we can get a better price for autism families that way, but you can order it directly from them too. But again, just smell any oil, and if it smells bad, it is bad. Let's see, next question is the protocol is for adults with autism as well, not just children. That's correct. We had some adults in our study as well, and we've seen adults do just about as well as children in terms of the benefits. So we find it very helpful for them, just as higher dosages for adults, of course. Did any kids improve seizures with ANRC? We did not include people with seizures in ANRC. I had done a separate study with Dr. Richard Fry. We did a national survey. We found that the anti-seizure medications were effective, of course, in blocking seizures, but they tend to worsen all the other symptoms. So what we found instead is that parents reported that gluten-free, casein-free diet was helpful, and there were many other treatments that were helpful as well. So if you go to our ANRC app and look at seizures, you can see what treatments people felt were the best rated for that. In roughly 80% of cases, we don't know the cause of seizures. And although about 20% of people with autism have obvious seizures, about 80% have non-obvious abnormal epileptiforms. So it doesn't show up as a physical symptom, but it's probably disrupting the body's ability to think in 80% of kids. We had one child in a microbiota transplant study who received MTT. They had Tourette's, and after MTT, they were cured of Tourette's. And they don't use the word cure lightly, but their symptoms were just gone after a few weeks. We do know that people with seizures have higher levels of certain microbial metabolites. My suspicion is that many seizures are due to microbial metabolites. We want to research that more. Is there any app for Android? I wish we had a version that was very close, and then my programmer's computer crashed. They lost the app, so I'm hoping they will have it. If more people want to ask for it, I can ask our volunteers to make the Android app. Let's see. How do you get children to take the supplements? Well, it depends on the supplement. For ANRC, we did have one child who said it tasted like a Fiesta in their mouth. That was a surprising comment. But in general, I would say it's a very strong vitamin mineral taste. So what we recommend is taking first a sip of pure juice, a strong tasting juice like a cranberry juice, and then a sip of the juice mixed with the liquid, mixed with the powder, and then a sip of pure juice afterwards to wash it away. But also now we have the flavored version, which is interesting, and some kids may just like that. How do we get kids to eat healthier foods? There's a long discussion on that. Having them choose, having them play with the food, helping prepare it. Sometimes it's a texture issue. We find a great way to get more vegetables and fruits into kids is through a blender. So just blending up a lot of whole fruit, You want to keep the pulp because the pulp is so important for gut health. So we don't like fruit juices unless they include the original pulp. So taking a whole apple and grinding it up, a whole orange, and then sneaking some more vegetables into that, or a spaghetti sauce, sneaking vegetables into that. So however you can get them in. But again, the goal is a diversity or a rainbow of colors of fruits, of vegetables and fruits, and also beans and legumes as well. What's your opinion regarding camel milk? We haven't done any formal studies of it. I am unconvinced by the research I've seen on it. I'll just say that. Are you balancing high omega-3s with antioxidants? Yes, we always recommend starting with fish oil, excuse me, with a vitamin mineral supplement first. There are about 2% of kids who within a week of starting fish oil will go berserk. And that's if we found in those cases, that's due to very low carnitine. And so that's why we start with a vitamin mineral supplement that has enough carnitine to prevent carnitine deficiency, and then the omega-3s are well tolerated. Our supplement in general, it does not seem to have any substantial interactions with most drugs, but there's so many out there. Again, talk with your physician about any potential interactions. Someone says they could put Spanish subtitles on the video. Yes, that's a great idea. We could probably do that. There might even be a way to convert it with AI. So we can try. My son also has Down syndrome in addition to autism. Would the ANRC be suitable for him? We've not done a formal study ourselves of Down syndrome, but actually people with Down syndrome often do benefit from additional vitamin supplementation, probably for somewhat different reasons. But I would say I would caution it's a very high strength supplement, so I would start at a lower dose and be a little more cautious with dosing. Curiously enough, we did have about 10 families report in our survey for autism, about 10 who only had ADHD, and they actually improved even more than the autism group. And again, we've had several parents who have ADHD symptoms saying they've benefited as well. Can you expand more upon MTHFR gene mutation with kids with autism? We did not specifically look at that gene mutation because, frankly, I think it's a bit overblown. Please realize that, yes, kids with autism do have slightly more of that gene mutation than the general population, but it's only slightly more. It's a very common mutation. I think the numbers, as I recall, about 40% of the general population has it, and only slightly more of kids with autism have it. So it's one of many, many gene mutations. And so we have not specifically looked at that in the supplement, but again, we use the form folinic acid, which is the natural form. So it doesn't matter if you have that mutation or not. You will still benefit from the supplement. We did see, again, substantial improvement. We saw basically complete resolution or near complete resolution of methylation problems. We did not look, there's a question about dairy consumption. In general, and one benefit of the dairy-free diet is that some people have antibodies to the folate transporter that transports folate into the brain. And there's been some reports that going on a dairy-free diet can help reduce that antibody and lead to improved levels in the brain. Do you have a view on whether ANRC Essentials Plus or fecal transplant would be efficacious in a young adult whose main symptom is unreliable speech? We've certainly seen people improve with speech with ANRC. Again, it can take years for a young child to develop speech, so be patient. Speech is one of the symptoms that will improve last. But we've also seen that with microbiota transplant as well. These two treatments are very complementary. Think of it this way. The vitamin mineral supplement and the fish oil are providing what are absolutely essential nutrients. It's probably important to remind you what a vitamin or mineral means is a substance that's been proven if you don't have it, you will have a disease or die. So vitamins and minerals, if you don't have enough vitamin C, you will get scurvy. If it gets really severe, you will die from it. So that's the definition of a vitamin or mineral. It's so essential to get. But the fecal transplant is the other side, not the human body health, but the gut microbiome. We've evolved for tens of thousands of years to have a very special type of microbiome, which helps us in many ways. But many studies now, over 40 studies, show kids with autism, most of them have very dysbiotic gut microbiome, and they create a lot of toxins that interfere with normal body function. So a vitamin mineral supplement, especially the B vitamins like B6, help the body make its own neurotransmitters. That's important. But at the same time, we have the gut bacteria and yeast making corrupted versions of those neurotransmitters. You've got to deal with both problems. You've got to help the body make its own neurotransmitters and get rid of the corrupted ones. A very simple way to say it is that most kids with autism are drunk on these metabolites from their gut bacteria. Will I be sending a link for the expanded guidelines? Yes, we will be sending a link for the expanded guidelines, which will cover details for all 30 of the symptoms that we looked at. We'll be putting that on the website soon. Will the supplement be available on full script wholesale? We keep it, we have the supplement available through our website because we don't want to have any middlemen. Middlemen will just add to the cost. It is not a cheap supplement, but it has 40 ingredients in it, and we are very, very strict about what we have in there and the quality of the supplement. So, and we test for toxic metals in every batch. So, again, I think um, we try to keep it available to families at as low a cost as we can. Um, I don't I don't remember if it's available on full script or not. So Julie, maybe you can make a note and help me check with Jane on that. Any use of both ANRC and MTT? Absolutely. After MTT, we recommend people use ANRC if they're not already taking a vitamin mineral supplement. And again, our supplement we think is great. It could be that there are others that people might do slightly better on. But we did have just last week, I met a family who was on one high dose autism supplement. They switched to ours and felt it was very beneficial, much more beneficial. And there are probably some cases the other way too. I think, again, ours is the one we would argue to start with because it has the most research behind it. It's one of the very few that has sulfate, and sulfate is the major nutritional deficiency in autism. Um, okay. Next question is Annaludo's testing a urine test. Yeah, it's a very simple urine test. Just have your child pee in a cup, or if they're in diapers, there are strap-on pediatric collection bags. We recommend using the first morning urine because it's more concentrated, but some kids are not dry during the night, so it's fine to do a spot urine, provided it's not extremely dilute. Um, uh, how long to get results? So they have a deal with FedEx, so it gets quickly to them, less than a week, and then usually 2 weeks for them to analyze. Next question, do you offer samples of the ANRC supplement? It's funny you asked that. We just made available the first samples of the ANRC powder. I'm not sure they're available on the website. We've used them for samples at conferences. We just got the first samples of the powder. But yes, you can email ANRC and ask them, or Julie, maybe you know, are the samples available for purchase on the website? I don't remember. Okay. Can the information that is in the app be accessed on your portal? No, because we programmed it all into the app. So you just have to download the app. But the summaries by symptom will all be in the ANRC guideline, the expanded ANRC guidelines, and we will be putting that on the website. So the app is a bit more convenient just because it gives you more detail on each supplement. We have, hundreds of supplements. So it'd just be very kludgy to have on the website. Um, Someone's asking a personal question, infections of something particular. I'm not very familiar with those particular species, so you have to ask me. Again, I want to caution, I am a researcher, not a physician. There are some things that I know very well, but if I don't know something, I'll tell you, and I'll just say those are two things that I'm not very familiar with. But send it to me, we can look it up. Any adverse reactions to high dose B12 in the multivitamin? Well, when we see reactions, we cannot attribute what it's due to, but the level we give is, we think, a very reasonable and safe level of B12. It's very rare that we have a problem. In the dozen years or so that ANRC has been in existence, we've had probably less than a dozen reports of someone having an adverse reaction, and nothing that I'd specifically put down to high dose B12. We have had some children, as I said, about 12%, mostly have some hyperactivity, and this is mostly in the kids whose parents don't follow our directions and start at a low dose and gradually increase. Most families do best at the high dose, but at the full dose, but some people do better at half to three-quarters of the dose, just tailored to the individual. If an individual has one mutation, a variant of MTHFR, which form of folate, either folinic or methylfolate, either is fine. We think both are great forms. Is there a preference for carnitine form? Yes. We've studied both the L-carnitine form and the acetyl-carnitine form. The L-carnitine form is what we recommend because it's better absorbed. In the body then converts L-carnitine to acetyl-carnitine. So acetyl-carnitine is what we want, but it's better to give the L-carnitine because it's better absorbed. Do you test batches of the supplement for purity? Absolutely. Yes. It's also generally a hypogenic formulation. We request the suggested medical testing. Should we also include testing for lead, thallium, etc.? It's a personal question. If you think your child had exposure to toxic metals, you can test for it. We have done the studies in which we have done what are called chelation treatment studies, where we used an FDA-approved product for treating lead poisoning called DMSA. So we did a major study of it. First, we gave a test dose to many children with autism. We found that they did excrete much higher levels of certain toxic metals than did typical children. But you have to be cautious in interpreting a test result if you do a challenge giving a chelator, because anyone you give a chelator to, you're going to have a lot more show up in your urine. But the important thing about a chelator like DMSA is it tells you two things. If a high amount comes out in your urine, it tells you the medication's working, and it tells you those metals were there to begin with. Everyone has some toxic metals in them, and they're toxic. You don't want them in you. But you also find that if the chelators, if there's not enough toxic metals for them to bind to, they'll remove some of your essential minerals. So we found that initial testing was good. The treatment was good with DMSA, but then as treatment progressed, once the levels went down to low coming out in the urine, then children began having some adverse effects. So that was the time to stop. But generally, the levels are not extremely high in most children with autism. So our understanding is that the real problem is that children with autism have oxidative stress. Oxidative stress oxidizes the glutathione, which is the body's main defense against toxic metals. So the somewhat slightly higher levels of toxic metals we think are probably just indicating a problem with glutathione due to oxidative stress. Where does that oxidative stress come from? We believe it mostly comes from bad gut bacteria. It's bad gut bacteria which excrete toxins like P. cresol that poison the mitochondria, which then causes oxidative stress and decreases energy for the body and the brain. All right, can you take the vitamins with leucovorin? Absolutely. That we have a moderate amount of um, active form of folate in there. In general, folate works well with B12, and so we do recommend starting with our supplement, and then there may be a subset of children who will benefit from leucovorin, which is just extremely high dose of it. That study has not yet been done, but my good friend and colleague, Dr. Richard Fry, I've been the chair of his scientific advisor of his data safety monitoring board for 3 of his leucovorin studies. And I'll say in general, it seems that leucovorin seems safe and effective. Um, could it be more effective with giving B12 with it? Yes, I think so. Are you currently recruiting for MTT study? We will as soon as we raise the money, but our next study is a big phase 3 study, and that'll be about 200 children, hopefully adults as well. But we need to raise $20 million for that. We've already raised 10 million from 140 autism families. Now we need to raise another 20 million. It is expensive to do an FDA clinical trial for drug approval, but hopefully our investors will get a lot of their money back. What's the order that we need to administer? Well, our ANRC guidelines gives the recommendations. Start with a vitamin mineral supplement, then with the fish oil, because there's 2% of kids with autism who have a very bad reaction to fish oil because they're carnitine deficient. Then we recommend doing carnitine next because it only helps about half of kids. We only recommend it if a child's not either not eating beef products like hamburger and steak or has low energy. And then the healthy diet you could start early on. The problem we found is it's very hard to change diet. It's much easier in most cases to give a supplement. So that's why that's why we started our study with things that we had very high compliance on. Almost everyone in our study could get their children to take all the supplements. Again, it just took some extra bribery or persuasion with the kids, but we had very high compliance in our study. With Okay, oh, and for how long? So again, with the vitamin mineral supplement, try it for 3 months. If it's beneficial, I'd stay on it. Fish oil, I'd give it a trial for 3 months. The only side effect of fish oil is that you have better heart health and be less likely to die from a heart attack. It's good stuff. Carnitine, again, generally very helpful, but you have to go to high doses. So again, our ANRC guidelines give dosing guidelines. Next questions. Will the supplement be available on Fullscript wholesale? I have to check. Again, I'm not too familiar with Fullscript, so I'm not sure. We do distribute ANRC in many countries, and we also have a lithium-free version because some countries won't allow any lithium. Lithium at mega doses is a drug in the same way that leucovorin is a mega dose of folate. But when you give it at very low amounts of lithium, we found kids with autism have low amounts of lithium, and their mums do too. And we give just a little bit, the amount you normally get from your diet, if you're in a part of the country that's not low in lithium. So that's why we have a lithium-free version available also. Julie says we do not have ANRC available on Fullscript, but we'll look into that. Thank you for the request. Do we offer samples? If you just reach out to our website, info@ANRC, autismnrc.org, we'll get that info. Can you say what MTT stands for? Oh, I'm sorry. MTT stands for Microbiota Transplant Therapy. So we're transplanting gut bacteria from very healthy people, the top few percent healthiest people, into kids with autism. And why did I mention it in regard to people with Tourette's? Because one of our children with autism also had Tourette's. And we found that after a few weeks of treatment, I think it was about 8 weeks into treatment, they were cured of their Tourette's. We think many seizure disorders um, are due to abnormal gut bacteria. That's a hypothesis. We're now gathering samples from people with different conditions to try to evaluate that. Anyone interested in samples of our new flavored powder, again, reach out to info@ANRC, autismanrc.org, or if you have any other questions, reach out to them. What features of AI, if any, are you planning on using with your work with ANRC? Um, we're using it, we're in the process of using it for some very complex research studies that we're doing to evaluate. We're just beginning to analyze results from a huge $20 million autism prevention study where we're looking at siblings of kids with autism age 0 to 36 months. And we're going to analyze a huge amount of data we have on the medical histories, antibiotic use, for example, and on their metabolites, on their microbiome, many other, their immune system, to try to better understand how autism begins in very earliest children. Any thoughts on why children have consistently low zinc? Yes, it's because of terrible testing. So we worked with a lab called LabCorp. It's one of the biggest labs in the United States. It is the biggest lab in the United States. We tested kids with autism. Every one of 50 children with autism had low zinc. We tested 40 some typical children. Every typical child with every typically developing child had low zinc. Really, what it means is just LabCorp had a lousy reference range. So I think we have measured the levels in all of our studies, almost all of our studies. We never trust a laboratory reference range. They're often terrible. They often don't have pediatric reference ranges. So you need to ask a lab, do you really have a pediatric reference range? Because many just use the reference range for adults, and kids are not little adults. They have different biochemistry. So um, the kids with autism have slightly, again, we did not find any difference in blood levels. Some studies have found it in other countries. But for copper levels, we found they were slightly, very slightly elevated in autism. But your body, blood is not a great way to measure levels of minerals because your body has homeostasis. So if you're low in calcium, it will rob calcium from your bones to keep the level in your blood constant. And that's true of almost every essential mineral. Lithium is an exception. The body doesn't know how to deal with low lithium. We don't have stores of it. But for most nutrients, your body really regulates very tightly what's in your blood. And if it's low, it will increase absorption. And if it's high, it will decrease absorption. Um, Moving on, can a parent order the anti-ludose test without a doctor? Yes. Special rules in the UK, anyone can order the test worldwide. Any thoughts on saffron? Saffron's an interesting substance. It might have some benefit in general. Spices, I'd like turmeric. I think there's more data on turmeric as being beneficial, but I'd like to see hard studies on it. Let's see. Are you doing MTT in your lab? Yes, we treat many children with autism in our studies, but we can only do it in our studies. We are not allowed, the FDA won't allow us to do it outside of our research studies. So when we open up our studies, we'll advertise it well to everyone on our email list, and then people can apply. Usually, unfortunately, we have 10 times as many applicants as we do openings. All right, one last question or just a comment. So kind. Thank you very much for answering questions. Thank everyone for listening. Appreciate your attention. And again, we'll make a copy of the PowerPoint available and a copy of the recording available. So thank you all for listening. Thanks to the thousands of families who have been in our studies and given us donations. We really appreciate it. And if you're interested in investing in GBAT, please come to one of our meetings in the next couple of weeks. Thank you all. Take care.